Alright, so we got the red Mustang here, the one with the OTR and the direct port nitrous kit. Ended up getting it all together, wired it up, and we're going to go ahead and do our first dyno pulls on it. I did do an NA dyno pull on it first, and it made 440 on the nitrous tune. With low timing, a lot of extra fuel, but just did that to make sure the knock sensors weren't going crazy and everything was just working as it should. So we're about to turn the nitrous on from 4,500 to 7,500 RPM and do a little test run and see what it looks like. Alright, so we just did the first dyno pull on nitrous. The car didn't make as much power as I thought it was going to. Before, on 150 shot on its last setup, it made 537, I believe. And then now it made 555 with a lot less torque. So when you look at the dyno graph, the low end and the mid range is missing a ton, but it picked up a little bit on the top end with a lot more RPM. So basically the reason why for that, I think, is because the car doesn't have cams. And doesn't have ported heads or anything like that, and we stuck a big old high ram intake on it, or well, the customer ordered it and I just put it on for him. So with the high ram intakes, basically when you go from a factory intake manifold with really short runners to a high ram with really long runners for the intake manifold, you usually lose some torque and maybe some mid-range, but you usually pick up on the top end. But what I've seen in the past is on these Coyotes, if you do like a full bolt-on setup and you put a Cobra Jet intake on it, you actually don't pick up. I think we did test that. I think it was like a 5 horsepower difference. So you spend a couple grand on a Cobra Jet intake with a big old throttle body, different cold air intake, and it only makes 5 more horsepower than a factory intake manifold setup. And that's because the factory cams, the factory intake manifold is really optimized and it's really, really good. So that's why for the naturally aspirated stuff, unless you're doing crazy NA goals with like ported heads and different cams and stuff like that, you really don't need to change the intake manifold. So this is the first one that I've done with the Holley high ram, and we're kind of seeing the same thing. It's a little bit more pickup on the power side of things with the factory cams, but this car's really lacking having the factory cams instead of having usually the comp stage 2s is what we run. So actually talked to the customer. We're going to end up putting a set of camshafts in this car, but when you look back at the graph from the previous time the car came in, it looked like I was signaling the nitrous to come on around 3,000 RPM, and on this one I had it come in at 4,500. So now, in seeing that, just for fun to do a real good comparison, I'm going to turn the nitrous on at 3,000 and you know, let it run out from there. That way I can overlay the graph from the last time the car came in, and we can really see what the difference is basically with the different intake manifold, the OTR, the VMP throttle body. So the OTR never really shines on the dyno because it's a ram air effect. So down a racetrack or going down the highway and stuff like that is really where you see the differences, not here on the dyno. So mainly the differences from before to now is going to be the VMP twin blade throttle body and the high ram, and 50 more on the nitrous side of things. So we're going to do that pull, see where it lands, and then we'll get started on doing the cams on the car.
Tell when it stopped, when it stopped.
Yeah, you heard it was like, what? Yeah.
Giddy up, sparkle farts! I was like, oh, he's hitting the gas on that one for sure.
I had it come in sooner. 571. That's better. That's better. Let's see what it.
Ooh.
I was wrong. It picked up a lot mid-range.
Yeah, look at all look at all that.
Yeah.
Damn. Put a bigger jet in there.
If it was my car, yeah. Yeah, have a 500
He'd be like,
shot,
hey, Eric, man, oh, build a motor.
No. Nope. My stuff lives.
What? What's that?
My stuff lives.
Yeah, your head's
Nitro and M5 on mine. That nasty ass one. Yeah. That thing lit.
They'll also choke you out when you're standing next to it while it's running. You're like, wah. You're like, why are you crying? I'm not crying.
Alright. So basically, the Nitrous acted a little bit different that time. So it actually picked up on the low end and the mid range. Pretty much all over the board it picked up. I might have been signaling the Nitrous. The last dyno run on the last setup that I have on here was from like 2 years ago, so I don't remember the exact specifics. But as you can see from the dyno graph, it picked up everywhere, but it still falls off right at about 7,600. It falls off nasty. And we're revving it out to about 81, 8,200. So the customer's still going to benefit from the cams. We're going to pick up in the mid-range and even more on the top end. Made 571 and 570 torque. My previous setup, it made 534 horsepower and 481 torque. So huge jump. That's kind of what we wanted to see. But whenever we do cams on these, we typically see like 20 to 30, maybe 40 horsepower gain just on doing the cams. The only reason why I say 40 is because I had one car do that. But typically 20 horsepower is a good minimum number to pick up from doing the stage 2 cams on these things. So, you know, let's say it does that, maybe the car's a little bit cooler, maybe the bottle's a little bit harder, we could actually cross that 600 wheel horsepower number. And that's my personal goal with the car. I'm not sure what the customer's was, but so yeah, we're gonna do the cams and we'll be able to rev it out further. It'll change the peak power from, looks like about 7,200 closer to 8,000, and we'll make some more horsepower and hopefully cross that 600 horsepower threshold. But yeah, for now we're going to start tearing it apart. All right, so we're going to wrap up this video with a little bit on what we've done with Martha so far. We ended up getting the turbo kit back from getting ceramic coated or Cerakoted, and Peter's doing a bunch of the sensors. He's got most of them on there. From this point now, we're just going to start mounting the boxes and the Nitrous kit that Nitrous Express sent us. They're part of the team now. So we're going to use them to help spool up these massive turbos, and from this point basically we're going to wait until Dylan comes in on the 14th, and he's here for a whole week, so hopefully he can wire up the car in that week and we can actually go get some testing done with this. And I know everybody's waiting to see what this car is going to do. I'm excited, I know y'all are excited, and we're almost there, so another week or two and you'll be able to see what Martha's able to do on this new setup. On another note, we're actually going to be doing some merch for FL2K, I think. I'm working on some designs and thinking about doing a small run of shirts just for FL2K that we'll sell there at the event. So if you're going to be out there, come on by the trailer and you can see our new design and buy the shirts while we're there. I don't believe they're going to be available on the website until after FL2K. But yeah, until then, stay tuned to the next one.